Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Warden, we're ready.
Okay. Just want to say happy holidays to everyone, and it is my pleasure to call this meeting to order. I just realized I was muted. I'm sorry. I was going to ask Tammy to begin with a roll call, but we've already done that, so let's dispense with that. As far as the agenda goes, I want to take a step away from that and follow a different type of protocol today. This is a special call meeting necessary to hear from the people, as I designated them, our boots on the ground, who are out there each and every day doing what is necessary to positively impact our students. So with that said, we're going to move straight into the approval of our agenda today, which is to discuss COVID-related items that have to do with our returning to school after the holiday. So may I have a motion to accept the agenda as I have laid out?
Madam Chair, I move that we'll accept the meeting as you have described it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and I need a second.
Second.
Okay, and we will take a roll call vote. Tammy?
Pam Pereza. Aye. George Archuleta.
Aye.
Virginia Houston.
Aye.
Daniel Spence.
Aye.
Rodney Walton.
Aye.
And Dr. Sheila Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
As I said, the purpose of the meeting today is to have a very in-depth discussion with our re-entry team. I was very impressed with everything that was reported from that team the day that I had the privilege to join them. And I felt that it was extremely important for this to be an open session, not closed, because this is a topic that directly impacts our entire beloved community. I want everyone to listen intently to what everyone has to say, and then we are going to come to an informed decision.
Ms. Warden, you muted.
Okay. I'm sorry. It keeps going in and out. So with that said, if we can begin with our discussion, and Dr. Edmonds, would you like to start us off, please?
Sure. Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, and board members, as Ms. Warden shared, we do have our reentry task force team meetings. Our reentry task force team consists of about 27 to 30 people in the district. It includes our teacher of the year, principal of the year, principal representation from each of the grade levels. We have directors. We kind of have a full team of folks that come together typically once a month, but in times when we were doing our reentry work, we were meeting weekly. And so we still have that team that meets, and we get together and discuss where we are in each of the areas, every area in the district. The meetings typically last about 2 hours. We have our nurses that are here, that our lead nurses, and they are on with us today as well. But we go through each area in the district to discuss where are we in terms of our reentry, what are some challenges that we may be seeing, and then how do we troubleshoot as a team. And outside of the team that we have for our reentry task force, we also have subcommittees. So we have a finance subcommittee that talks about the COVID relief funds, or we may have another subcommittee that looks at communication. And I'm sharing a little bit of background information for our board members that are new that may not know that the reentry task force team exists. And we also have our board chair that serves on that committee, on the reentry task force committee as well. And the folks that are with you today is a subset of that committee, which would be our school leaders that have that representation. I did not ask our teacher of the year to come on, but we can certainly, if we need to have her join us, we can do that. And we also have our lead nurses who are part of that team, as well as the chief officers. So I'm going to turn it over to our lead nurse and have her share with you kind of where we are in terms of the number of cases that we have, the number of staff members that may be in quarantine or students. And Nurse Young serves as one of our co-leads for the nurses. And so Nurse Young, I will turn it over to you, and then we'll have our principal share out.
Hello, everyone. Madam Chair Warden and Vice Chair Pereza and board members, good morning or afternoon now, actually. They asked that I share a little bit with you. I know most of you are probably following what's going on, the information coming from the health department. But I wanted to share with you guys what's happening in our schools. So I'm going to share my screen now with you guys. Can everyone see my screen? So this chart that we created, this breaks down all the schools individually, but what we did was we did the numbers prior to our Thanksgiving break and then after our Thanksgiving break. So you could kind of get an idea of what we dealt with afterwards. And you can see, like in the elementary schools prior to the Thanksgiving break, we only had 4 positive cases. After Thanksgiving, we had 14 in the elementary schools. Direct contacts, and what that means is these are the people that we have quarantined due to being in direct contact with a family member that has tested positive. So we had 12 of those prior to Thanksgiving and 36 after Thanksgiving in elementary schools. And then you can just follow the numbers down. You can see our total numbers overall have doubled after the Thanksgiving break. We think that's primarily due to everyone getting together at Thanksgiving and having large groups. And with the health department and my team, we feel like that we're probably going to see another large jump increase after Christmas, probably more so than what we've seen here. But you can, the numbers say it best. You can see here that our numbers have doubled and almost tripled as far as direct contacts and positives.
Can you, do you have a breakdown of the positive cases, staff versus students?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I don't have it on this screen here. This reflects both staff and students, but I can tell you that the largest number coming from this is from staff. We're not seeing as many students that are presenting with positives. We are seeing more of it in the high schools since Thanksgiving, but the majority of this is from staff. So we've been having a really difficult time staffing the schools based off of this too, because we've had to quarantine so many of our staff members.
Does this take into account how many days after Thanksgiving?
This reflects from when we came back from Thanksgiving until now.
And what are the what constitutes quarantine for staff or students? Would that be direct contact with a known positive?
Right. If we have a known positive, for instance, a lot of our situations are where they have a family member in the home that has tested positive. Or if they have direct contact would be within 6 feet of a person for 15 minutes cumulative. So they can be 2 minutes now, 5 minutes later, but it's been 15 minutes cumulative in a day's time, they're considered a direct contact. Did that answer your question? I hope.
I got a question.
Yeah, thank you.
Does this include support staff as well, or is this just all staff, all students?
This is all staff and students, yes, sir.
Including bus and transportation and all that?
No, sir, I don't have
in-house.
that information.
This is school information. Okay.
This is just in the schools. Yes, sir.
And our nursing staff is recommending still the 14-day quarantine, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We have not supported the new 7-day guideline due to, there's so many factors that go into that 7-day guideline. And since we are what's considered a red area, we don't qualify for that 7-day guideline anyway, because we're considered a high-risk area.
Thank you.
Does anybody do the rapid test?
Most of the places that are testing, they will do what is called a rapid test and a PCR test. So they run it both ways. We have been waiting for the test that takes primarily about 2 days to get back, because that is the more accurate testing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these cases within, I guess, the last week or so?
We've seen a very large uptick within the last week. Yes, sir.
So those who've, I guess, been tested positive would have the 14-day quarantine period.
Right. Well, actually, if they have tested positive, it's 10 days from the start of their symptoms.
Okay.
They're symptomatic. If they're not symptomatic, then it's 10 days from the positive test. If they're in contact with someone, if they have a direct contact, then that person has to be 14 days. And it can get a little bit even more complex than that, because if they are in the same household and they are unable to quarantine from each other, for instance, if you have a mother caring for a small child, then the 14 days for that child would start at the mother's 10-day mark. So the child could potentially be out of school up to 24 days.
And Nurse Young, we can have Ms. Sawyer pull up the or share the dashboard that has the positive cases. What Nurse Young has before you includes positive cases in the quarantines, but we also have on our dashboard on the website the positive cases by the week. So either Nurse Young, you can pull that up. We can have Tammy pull it up, whichever one works best.
Okay, and I was just showing you guys here, this is the most recent update from the health department of the number of cases that they are tracking and the active ones and things like that. But you can pull this up on the health department's website. I just wanted to share that with you guys too. And
you can take a quick minute or two to go through that if you think that will be helpful. Then we can switch over to Tammy. Okay.
Well, here you can see in Pacoima County, they've had 449, Pasquotank, I'm in Pacoima. In Pasquotank County, they've had 1,489 confirmed cases. They have had 168 that are still active. What that means, they're still actively in their quarantine stage. And they've had 1,200, a little over 1,200. They are considered recovered. So that's how you can we have, our numbers in North Carolina have been a definite increase over Virginia, which you think would be a bigger area, but so that's a little bit alarming number there when you look at that. And I'll stop sharing my screen so you guys can share the dashboard.
And if you will scroll down to the visual, Tammy, that would be helpful. Yeah. So at the top, you will see kind of a number of cases that's in chart form. And these are the positives. And the visual that you see is from since October 19th, when we first re-entered or returned to campus, to where we are for the week of December 14th. And of course, for this week, we only have today and tomorrow. So, well, actually today, tomorrow's a teacher work day, but we're not going to add that into last week's because we want to keep it on want to make sure we're measuring week by week. And so you can see by this visual that our cases, the positive cases have more than doubled. Are there any additional questions for Nurse Young? And of course, you can ask her additional questions as we go along, but we'll move to our principals, our school leaders, and have them share out. And Dr. Waples, I think, will be our first principal to share out.
Yes, good afternoon, Board Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, board members, Dr. Edmonds, our colleagues, and community members. My name is Dr. Katina Waples. I'm a principal here at Sheep Harney. I'd like to share with you some concerns coming from the elementary level. Our first concern is that the overall rise in number of COVID cases, especially since Thanksgiving, which you just heard our head nurse speak of. The second concern is the grave shortage of substitute teachers needed to cover teachers who are not feeling well, have positive cases, or need to quarantine due to possible exposure. Our substitute teachers shared that they are afraid and anxious of coming to the schools because they themselves or their family members living in their homes are in high risk categories, and although they would love to help us out, they are certainly unable to do so at this time. That is concerning for us because our students need to have coverage in our building. This lack of substitute teachers places our teachers in a tough predicament where they must make tough decisions regarding whether they come to school even though they're not feeling 100%, or they stay home but potentially place their students with the possibility of not having coverage in our building. Lastly, our concern is, although notifying staff and parents of positive cases is necessary and everyone truly appreciates it, it has truly created a lot of anxiety and emotional stress within our schools. Thank you, Dr. Edmonds.
Thank you, Dr. Waples. And we'll have next, I think it's Principal Moore, and then Principal Fonville, and Principal Fife.
Good afternoon, Board Chair, Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, board members, and colleagues. I also express the same concerns that Dr. Waples shared. At the middle school level, there are no substitutes. As our staff members become ill, we are having to shift students to other classrooms to help with staffing issues. Myself, I am very concerned for my own health at this point. I meet 3 areas of concern as it regards to COVID. However, I put my own self at risk every day to come to this building to work with my colleagues. The anxiety has gotten to me and my staff, but we put on the face to come in and do the work that so many frontline workers do on a day-to-day basis. Our concern at this point is that the numbers are increasing in the schools. As being one of the members that work with the reentry team, we want our students in this building. However, we all want to be safe. And at this time, it is very hard just staffing alone has become a crucial issue as the numbers increase. As I looked at that chart and saw that we now have 3 pending cases, it is very nerve-wracking for staff and students at this point. We are also starting to see the number of students coming to the buildings decrease every week. So at this point, I also agree with Dr. Waples that we are all in concurrence that we would like to see that 14-day, that time period where we can quarantine and get back to being healthy again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, and other distinguished board members and the community. The main concern is that of the staff, the health of our students and staff, and the staff, as well as my fellow principals, we have expressed the concern for not having a quarantine period and having to come straight back to the school, not knowing where students and staff have been. And we think that would be a wise thing to do, is to consider that grace period, or that period where people can get back and quarantine before coming back to the school building. Many of my teachers have expressed that concern, and they're coming to the building because they're committed. Just as the administrators, we're committed to doing what we were called to do. And as Ms. Moore said, and as Dr. Waples has expressed, we want to do it in the safest way possible. We're committed, but we want to do it in the safest way possible. So having that quarantine period would greatly show the staff that we're in support of them and that we do take their health seriously. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, Board of Education members, Dr. Edmonds, colleagues, community members who may be listening. Thank you for hearing us. I echo everything my colleagues have just expressed. I would say that high school is seeing increased numbers. We have a number of students who have siblings, not just in other schools, but in the high schools as well. So when one gets sick, generally the whole family is on lockdown. We have a number of members of the staff in the other 2 high schools who continue to work remotely, along with staffing concerns that the other schools have. We do not, at the high school level, choose to have substitutes come in. For the other 2 high schools, it's a matter of they have 1 period a day. And so if someone gets sick, they don't have that class. That goes into a remote status. So once you start looking at the cumulative effects of people getting sick, staff members being out, us putting our own concerns aside. I have a husband who is in the group. I'm in the group of being high risk and a frontline worker. I'm an 87-year-old mother-in-law who I take care of. So, these things are very real for all of us. And it is a very real concern that we had numbers start to spike after the Thanksgiving holidays. And with this being a longer time period out, and a lot of our students traveling over this holiday, going to not just other cities, but other states. Some of my students have gone to other countries, so they're flying. And so there is a very real concern that students and staff are going to bring back cases and share it around with many of us.
Chair Warden, that Ms. James Davis, were you going to add anything to this? I know previously you shared the number of staff members that were working remotely. Did you have anything to add before I shift back to Chair Warden, or see if there are questions for our school leaders?
Okay. Yes, I don't mind sharing. I'm not sure if you can see my video. I don't know if something's going on Ms. Sawyer said she couldn't see me, but I'm showing that it's on, so please forgive me. Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, board members, Dr. Edmonds, the community, and other staff members. So right now we have a limited number of substitutes that we can use to come into schools. I think right now we have 2 more that are in the process of being ready to come in, because before they come in now, we do have some of their onboarding or orientation includes some COVID information that, of course, we have to be sure that everybody's familiar with, especially our protocol and what we're doing to not only making our staff and students safe, but how we're going to ensure their safety, if they follow those protocols. So right now we have 18 that are currently helping out in schools. We do have a larger pool, but they are the ones who said they don't want to come inside of buildings. So right now we're only using the ones who can come into buildings, because we just really need staff to be able to work with our students face to face. Our substitutes to be able to work with students face to face, because we can handle the ones who are the students who are virtual. To date, we have about 90 staff members total who are have submitted documentation to be able to work remotely, meaning not to come inside of the building to work, because they are at they exhibit one of the health concerns or health factors that put them at risk. Like a couple of the colleagues have said already, we do have more who are at risk. And I think as of last Thursday and Friday, I do know that we have 3 additional staff members who have requested the document or the forms that they would need to complete and to have their healthcare professionals to complete, saying that they are at risk of contracting the virus. And so I think that'll be all that in addition to what the rest of the staff members share, that I would need to share, Dr. Edmonds.
Thank you, Ms. James Davis. And I do apologize. We do have Dr. Glenn that's with us to share her thoughts around, because we originally had discussed having our students with disabilities, pre-K and ESL students coming in, and she did share some information that had made us have a shift in our thinking around that. So Dr. Glenn, at this time, if you would share.
We have had the same issues that other people are having with staffing in the schools. Our teacher, we just had a teacher assistant who said that she was doing everything, following all the safety protocols, and she was diagnosed with COVID. So with the increasing numbers, staff members are getting scared. They're more and more of them are either quarantining because they've had a close contact or have had COVID. And we will certainly do what we need to do, what the board suggests, but we also want to do go for the greater good of the community. And I think if with the increases that we're seeing, the strain is mutating to make it more transmissible, that a little bit of a break after the Christmas holidays, because people are probably going to go see their loved ones, even though everybody's telling them to stay home. They're probably going to get together, and I think a little bit of a break for everyone may help us in the long run. So whatever the board members think is the greater good of the community, EC will make it work.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. Chair Warden, those are the members of the task force team that are with us today. So if you have additional questions, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you need additional information, just let us know.
Well, again, I just want to thank the the team who have been willing to be to address the concerns, and I have heard you loudly and clearly. I will ask if there are any questions from any board members from the floor, if you would ask those now so that we can go ahead with our discussion and possibly take action today. Well, we are going to take action today around this issue.
All right, Chair Warden, I have a question. I appreciate the information that has been shared from the reentry task force members who are here today. I wonder if in any of those meetings you have, and I guess this would particularly be for principals, have you had very much feedback from the parents of our students with regard to their feelings on this particular matter, or teachers?
This is Principal Moore. If I can share, what we have seen is the decrease of students attending face-to-face instruction. We are also starting to see an increase in stomach flu. And so more students are not coming to the building as we are having to send out notices of having to move students from one classroom to another classroom because of staffing. Parents are making the decision to keep their students at home. Again, the staff is very anxious, including myself, and very concerned. Right now, most of my teachers only come to the building on the days that they are teaching. Cohort A, Monday and Tuesday, cohort B, Thursday and Friday. However, elective teachers come 4 days a week to assist with the safety protocols that we have in place. But we are starting to see a decline in staff that are attending on a regular basis as we are having to move kids from class to class.
And I would also echo that at the elementary level. Our enrollment for student attendance face-to-face has definitely decreased, especially in the last week when we notified parents on Parent Square that we had positive cases within our buildings. Parents are concerned.
The staff have expressed concern about returning. You know, they're in the building, they're instructing and teaching kids because that they're committed. The thing is okay, they want to know, how is there going to be a quarantine period after we come back, because they're in here. Some of them have underlying health conditions, but out of commitment and thankfulness to me, you know, they're coming in. But they're just very concerned because if we come back from the holiday and come straight into the building, what is it going to look like? You know, what is the potential of higher infections? And they're, again, like some of my colleagues have expressed, some of them are taking care of old elderly family members. And so whatever they catch, you know, it affects their household. So they're very concerned about that.
Thank you very much.
Chair Warden, I have a question. My question is, if there's a 14-day extension, and this is to the principals, do you think your staff is going to feel comfortable coming back even after 14 days?
And I can't speak for each teacher, but I do feel like, you know, and from the ones that the couple I have spoken to, they would appreciate that consideration because it'll make them feel, you know, a little bit more comfortable coming in after that break. Because to come back in, we don't know. Some people may have come right off the road and coming into the building. We just don't know. So to at least have that consideration, you know, would go a long way with them.
Thank you, sir.
I agree. I concur. And I've had this conversation with my teachers, and really that's all they're asking for. It is much more difficult for them to teach students remotely. They'd much rather have them face to face, but they also understand what the problems will be if we come right back in. So yes, they're very comfortable with that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chair Warden, I have a couple of thoughts and concerns. When I'm looking at the numbers, I understand the staffing issues and concerns because primarily our numbers are from staff. One of the things that concerns me about 14 days is that that's just not a magic number. And I feel like it could potentially extend the amount of travel time that people take for the holidays. And then we get into our Martin Luther King holiday, which is a 3-day weekend, another travel weekend. You know, this could keep going and going and going. So we need to think about the implications of our reasoning here. So another concern for me is that for 14 days, many of those students will have to find somewhere else to go. Potentially a child care facility, a camp, the YMCA, places like that, where they will be in different groups of children for those 14 days. I highly doubt everyone's going to stay home for 14 days. So I just don't know that this is truly going to be the magic way to reduce numbers in our schools, because I think as long as we have numbers in the community, we're going to have higher numbers in the schools. We're seeing this here from Thanksgiving. Yes, we are going to see it after Christmas because of, like you were saying, Dr. Glenn, people are going to travel. They are going to, in this fight, they are going to travel. They are going to be with their family. And then I just think that we're just going to, as long as the numbers are high in the community, we're going to see numbers increase in the schools. And again, thinking about where those kids are going to be for those 14 days, and potentially, again, like I said, they're going to be in either child care facilities, camps, or something like that, and continue to roll into other issues. And then when we get to spring break, are we going to have to if our numbers are high, are we going to consider doing this again? Those are just my concerns with this.
I might be able to help the principals out a little bit with this. I believe one of our biggest concerns of doing this at this time is because of the time of the year that we're in. This is a critical time for influx of flu, stomach bug, things like that. And unfortunately, it is not something that we can differentiate from COVID. What I mean by that is it's all the same symptoms. So we could potentially be quarantining students that for 10 and 14 days that have the flu and not know it if their parents don't take them to the doctor. So I think one of the reasons why the staff is so concerned right now, from my viewpoint, is because of the time of year that we're in. We're in that influx time of the flu and things like that, like I was saying. I completely understand what you're saying about extending their travel time too. That's a concern of mine also. But I think I'm speaking for myself here, but I think that's exactly why the teachers are more concerned, is because it's the cold and flu season already. And that's why they're hoping this time might give people time to recover before they come back into the buildings.
May I also share that we chose that time period because students would only be missing, and I say only, 7 days from the face-to-face instruction. So we kind of took that into account because we know how important it is for them to come back. That's why we have implemented all of the safety protocols to ensure that they're safe in our buildings. And we wanted to limit the amount of time that they would not be in school. So we kind of looked at the school calendar and used that time frame with the holidays already in place so that students would only be missing 7 face-to-face days.
So I would just like, particularly for all of you who are on the task force, I appreciate what you shared with us today. It matters, and it's good to hear it coming directly from you. We have so many parents who are swaying. One group, they want the kids back in school. We have another group saying this is not the time. We want them to be virtual. And hopefully they're listening and they have to understand that we're in the middle to make the best. I listened to what you shared, and at first, okay, same as you, 14 days, you know, I think they're going to be safe for the 14, the additional time, the additional days, whether it's 7. So I thought about that. But then I think about the holidays, and particularly Christmas. Some are still going to celebrate, and we know that. But then we also know that after the holidays and after New Year's Day, everything is dead. Everything stops. Many people are out of money. They've spent a lot during the holidays, and so things will change. I think that is a period of time that they're going to be less active. So that's what I was thinking about. But I certainly respect those in leadership who are making a decision and saying it's not the right time. And so that's what I'm hearing. And also you have to consider the teachers, board members. You know, you received a letter this morning from a teacher who does not want to return right now. We're going to be facing that. At this time, we don't know how many teachers we will have who are not wanting to return at this time. How do we handle that? You have subs. Do you have enough substitutes? I think it's a lot that has to be considered that we may not know. And Dr. Edmonds, I think we discussed maybe some kind of survey, just trying to get an idea of who we will have coming back. You know, first we fully have answers because you never know who will have COVID in between now and then. And so even though it really is a tough decision, but I'm leaning on the strong leadership who's sharing with us that the time is not right, that we need to give them time, and hopefully just pushing for everyone to practice safety so they can safely return. Because as the principals are stepping into these buildings, they're in a situation as well that they are trying to certainly not be stricken with COVID. We don't want that to happen to them. So they're having to be there. I just think, you know, my thinking about it, listening to you and looking at the holidays and looking at that period of time when the holidays are over, certainly we need to consider what leadership is sharing with us.
And Dr. Williams, we did discuss the survey of teachers and staff prior to them coming back. And so that we did discuss that in the reentry task force team meeting.
I think I want to second what Dr. Williams has said. I respect what Ms. Perez has said, and that is something that we have to think about. But at the same time, I know we cannot get a guarantee that we are even going to have enough staffing. So I think we need to take that into consideration.
Thinking along those lines, I guess my questions would be, well, first of all, again, thank you to everybody who is actually, you know, at the schools and participating and working with the kids, the students as they come in, because that's, again, invaluable as front line, and it you know, it means a lot to the community and obviously to the board. My concerns, however, come in with, again, staffing. Staffing would be an issue if teachers aren't going to be able to come in based on their anxiety level of coming in. But I also look at the 14-day quarantine period. Like, when would that actually begin? Because if we look at it where we begin the quarantine period from the day of school returning, which would be January 6th, I believe, does it start then? Is that the 14 days? And if it's the 14 days at that point, how many days does it take for the symptoms for COVID specifically, not for any other flus or any other sicknesses, but COVID specifically? How many days does that take to manifest itself as an actual, this person has tested positive? Because in 14 days, if that's what's been recorded, is going to be the time that it takes for those people to finally to find out that they have COVID. Then it takes another 14 days after that period before we can know that they've been either recovered or have an actual quarantine for the COVID. So my concern, does it go from 14 to 28 and 28 into, what's next after that? So all of the concerns are valid. I can appreciate it. I'm one as well who suffers from pre-existing conditions. So I'm, careful to do what's out in the public. But looking at it from what's the date going to begin, and if that window increases, how far does that window go before we have to start thinking long range?
And Board Member Walton, what was discussed in the reentry task force team meeting was that January 4th would be the start date. And I think it was to January the 21st, I think it's a Thursday. Y'all can help me. And what the principals did was looked at from January the 4th to January the 21st, how many on-campus face-to-face days would that be? And I think that calculation was that it was a total of 7 face-to-face days that the students would be remote versus face-to-face, because January 4th and 5th are teacher work days. The 6th is a remote day. And then you have that Thursday and Friday, and then the next Monday, Tuesday, and that Thursday, Friday, and then we have a holiday, and then that Tuesday. So the students would return on a Thursday, is what was shared. Okay, I see some heads nodding. So
yeah. I'm looking at the calendar with you, Dr. Evans.
Thank you.
But okay, so back to, again, that does bring me back to my concern. So if we're looking at the 21st, and from the chart that we had before that showed after Thanksgiving, it took about 2 weeks before the numbers really spiked. So if it's going to take about 2 weeks, which puts us around, hold on, let me just get that again, puts us around that time, when we see those numbers start to spike again, what is our next move?
And I'm assuming you're asking what would be the next move in terms of coming back to the board to say we're struggling with staffing, and I don't know the answer to that. Nurse Young may be able to address the question in terms of could we potentially see another spike after the holidays?
We are definitely predicting another spike. When I spoke to some people at the health department, they felt like that families did fairly well for Thanksgiving. They were not getting together like they normally would, a lot of families, but we feel like for Christmas, that's going to change. Because then people were concerned about this could be the last Christmas with my parents and things like that. So we are definitely predicting a spike afterwards, but that is something that is still an unknown. It's hard for us to tell at this point. But with it being this time of year and the number of cases that we have already, I would say it's a very strong possibility.
And I would think most people would visit. We have Christmas this week, which is Thursday and Friday of this week. So if you count 14 days after that, and I'm not a medical professional, so I'm really not trying to get into this, but based on what I've heard, if we're looking at 14 days after contact, I would think the 24th, 25th, and counting 14 days. Nurse Young, you can stop me at any time when I'm getting too far outside of this.
Right. They are still saying that, well, they have some new research now that they're saying you can become symptomatic anywhere from 2 to 10 days. That's usually, we know something by that point. And then by day 5, they are on the recovery side of it. We are still adopting the 14-day protocol of quarantine just because we're a red area. The CDC has put guidance out there that you could shorten the quarantine to 7 days, actually, since they're seeing that by day 5, they're on the recovery side. However, since we're a red area, we haven't adopted that for safety mostly. But as far as, like I was saying, though, it's hard to, we do definitely predict an increase after Christmas because we feel like families will be getting together more. We are hearing so many students and staff saying that they're traveling to different areas, different states, things like that. So that's a large concern for us. The governor did make a recommendation that if you traveled out of state, that you would quarantine when you came back into the state. That's another reason why we have adopted this to where we're trying to do the 14 days after Christmas, to give those people that time to quarantine. That is strictly a recommendation by the governor. It's not a requirement. But I do definitely feel like that it would be helpful if we did allow these people that time to quarantine. As Ms. Perez said, though, there's always that possibility that they would extend their travel time if they know they don't have to come directly back to school. I don't know how to fix that problem. But I do feel like the extended time for quarantine after Christmas break would be beneficial.
And Nurse Young, I'm pretty sure most people understand what it means to be in the red, but do you mind just sharing out what does that mean to say that?
That means that the health department has deemed us a very high risk area, that our numbers have increased to a certain level that they consider us, it's red, orange, yellow. And we are in the highest level at this point. Pasquotank has hit its highest numbers over the last couple of weeks. From the beginning, from March until now, we're at our highest numbers now than versus what it was back in March.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I could, I want to say again, thank you all, teachers and administrators, so much for your hard work, your effort. You're taking the shots from parents and those in the community, because the reality is, I do believe no matter what decision you make or we make, there are going to be some people that are happy, and there are going to be some people who are upset. So we're never going to be able to please everybody. So thank you once again for all your hard work. I echo everybody else's sentiments to you guys. I had about 36, 37 questions, but since everybody else has asked those questions, I've narrowed it down to now only 2 questions. I think it is maybe 3. The first question is, are we going to, the plan for this 2-week break, is that across the board? Because I do realize the high school students right now are only going 1 day as it is. Are we going to take that 2-week period and take that 1 day away as well for them? Because there's not much interaction there. So that's the first question. Are we going to do this across the board?
Yes, it would be across the board.
And we wouldn't do high school separately because what reason?
For the same reason that the principals have shared, that students will be traveling and the staff members are concerned about the interaction with the students and just the spread of COVID when we return.
All right. Okay. Other question is, I did hear across the board there has been a decrease in students attending school. Has that helped with the shortage of staff? Being we have less students, has that helped with the I guess the principals will have to answer this question. Has that helped with the shortage of staff that you don't have as many students coming?
Well, I'll answer that
No, I see
from an
somebody shaking their head.
elementary.
No, I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'll answer that from an elementary level. The answer is no, it has not helped because our students are placed in a classroom, and because we're trying to minimize movement, you can't then get those kids and shift them into another classroom because if something were to happen, you'd have to do tracking, and that would get very complicated with moving kids and shifting them from here to there. So if I have if I have 7 second grade students, I can't move those 4 to another second grade class or to a first grade class. It would not work. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Okay.
But I guess we haven't as many. So I guess we're having as many teachers out as we are the students. Then is that what
Correct.
I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Actually, we're having a large number of staff members out. It's more a staffing issue than it is a student issue at this point
That's what I was trying to hear. Okay.
because we're having to pull TAs and things from out of their classrooms to cover classrooms for us and things like that. So, but within the last week, having said that, within the last week, we are seeing more of an increase with students. Like at the high school level, our student numbers are increasing as far as positive cases. We've seen a little bit of a uptick with the middle school also. And then now we have word of this new mutation of it that um, whereas we didn't see the smaller children getting it so much, now that is changing also. So there's a potential that we could see the smaller children start to show positive more so now.
Okay. And I guess the last question would be then, during this 2 weeks, what are what's the plan for the teachers during this 2 weeks? Are they doing the whole 2 week quarantine, or are they using this 2 weeks as they're coming in working, or what are the recommendations, I should say, for them to come in and work and plan, or are they taking the whole 2 week quarantine as well?
So
Oh, admit
instruction,
teachers.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought I had to explain it more, but you got it.
Okay. I will start off and then the principals can certainly take up after that. When the students are in remote status, instruction will still be delivered. So the teachers are still teaching. Originally, the thought was that the students would be remote and the teachers would come into the building. As we've had conversation at the reentry task force team meeting, we now have a different thought about that. So I'll have the principal share out some of that conversation. But the thought is that the instructional staff and the instructional support staff would also be remote. And Nurse Young can certainly weigh in on this as well. And so all of our instructional staff and instructional support staff would be working remotely. That would be the recommendations. And principals, please jump in because originally that was not the thought.
Yes, I can speak for River Road. You know, we do know that staff are going to be traveling, just like some students are going to be traveling. So it'd be best across the board to have everybody quarantined, across the board, because I don't know who's going where and who's coming from what. So that's the safest route to go. Myself, I'm not going anywhere. So, I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Does the teachers at point, do you have much interaction with each other? If y'all happen to come back to school, is there a lot of interaction with teachers, or we simply go into our classrooms, do our planning, do our teaching from the classrooms?
The teachers normally go to their classrooms, and that's where they are. You know, the only time they see each other is when they're rotating classrooms, because our teachers at the middle school, we rotate and the students stay put. The only concern is that you don't know how this thing spreads. I mean, they says in the ventilation, it's airborne. But for the most part, my teachers stay stationary and then they move around when they rotate. But to be safe, I would suggest that all of them quarantine and then just teach remotely. And to go back, I think you mentioned about the quarantine period of 2 weeks. I think it would be helpful if the public or the community understood why we were doing this. Like, if we were to move forward with it, the purpose of it is to decrease the number of cases that could possibly be. And I think helping them understand that would probably have them think differently about their vacation, because some may try to come back on the 20th. But to help them understand what we're trying to do, maybe that'll help them think differently. You know what I'm saying? I know we can't, we're taking preventive measures that we can, but they have to do their part as well. So I think if they understood, or a memo went out, some kind of way of communication, helping them understand why we're doing it, that would help.
I had a.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not muted. I had a question but I wanted to say I'm hearing different things as far as, you know, parents and staff members are concerned. And then we have the other parents and students and teachers are planning to travel. So we definitely have, just like Daniel and Sheila said, you know, two differing groups of thought, where some are going to go and travel and do and are planning to, and some are concerned. So we're not going to make everyone happy with the decision that we make. But again, as everyone else has said, I do appreciate all the work you guys are putting into this and for reporting to us. Ms. Young, I know last week when we met, we were able to say that we have not had any secondary spread or student to teacher, teacher to student spread so far. Is that still the case?
Yes, ma'am, that's still the case.
Thank you.
And I have just one more question. I want to make sure that I'm sure about this. I think I heard two principals say that they had a decrease in their numbers of students, which they thought gave them some indication of how parents felt. Is that true across the board? Have all the principals, most of the principals, noticed a difference or a decrease in ADA?
Yes, ma'am, we have, and I spoke to the other two high schools, and they indicated the same thing. I specifically asked them that question today.
River Road Middle School has as well.
Elizabeth City Middle School.
And I also,
you were muted.
oh, so did you hear my question? You didn't hear my comment.
I heard the question, but I heard the comments afterwards.
Okay. Well, all I want to say is I also appreciate the time and effort that all of you put in, as well as our entire staff for ECPPS, and your concern for the students and what's best for them. And I know that we are going to do careful deliberation in terms of the decision make today. I do want what's best for everyone, and I have a lot of confidence that as board members, we are going to take all of these things in consideration as we make our decision. So thank you very much, all of you, for all that you have done and will continue to do.
Vice Chair Pereza, I do have a correction. I just received some word from two of my nurses that we have had secondary transmission in two of the schools, a teacher to a student, and in another school, a student to a teacher.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from any of the board members? Any more comments or discussion? Any more comments or discussion at this time? As chair, I want to again express my appreciation for everyone, members of the team, those professionals in our district who are doing what they need to do in order to provide a top-notch education to our students, as well as provide an environment that is safe and healthy. I appreciate everything that all of your opinions, and I think we will make a very wise decision based on what we've heard today. I really thought that it was extremely important for you to come to this meeting and share what the discussion that we had during the task force meeting that I was able to attend. So again, I appreciate all of the comments that were made and the advice that was given. So with that said, I think we need to move forward. If there are no more questions to any of our professionals who are with us today, I need a motion on the floor to take action on extending, as advised, the period of Christmas vacation from the 6th to the 21st, which would involve 7 days missing of face-to-face instruction. So I will need a motion and a second from the floor.
I move to approve the extension of a delay for the school entry between the January 6th and 21st for a 7-day no face-to-face.
I second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second from the floor to accept the calendar proposal, the extension of reentry after the Christmas holiday, in taking into consideration our community as well as our school personnel and our students. So with that, we need to take a roll call vote. Tammy?
Pam Perez,
No.
George Archuleta,
You're muted, George.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Archuleta. Ms. Virginia Houston,
Aye.
Mr. Daniel Spence,
Aye.
Rodney Walton,
Yes.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you. Mr. Archuleta, let me unmute you just one moment. Can you unmute Mr. Archuleta?
Tammy, can you do a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Can you do a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up. Nod your head, thumbs up. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Archuleta. Thank you, Ms. Warden.
So it looks like that we have a vote of, correct me, Tammy, if I'm wrong with the numbers, but I believe it was 5-1.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we will, we have listened to you guys. We appreciate everything that you have shared with us, and we will move forward with an extension of the calendar as you indicated. We appreciate everything that you have shared with us today. We appreciate and I appreciate my fellow board members for clearing their schedules today in order to attend this special meeting. I thought it was extremely important for us to hear from those people who are on the ground every day working with our students. So thank you. Thank you so much. I would also like to share with the board members that we do have a scheduled special meeting on the 4th of January. So you will need to, again, I'm going to assume we are going to have that meeting virtually as well. Am I correct?
Is that question for me, Ms. Warden?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is virtual. We have planned for a virtual meeting on the 4th.
Okay. May I ask for some additional people to be involved in that meeting as well? Our middle school principals and our ADs, if that is possible, because we want to talk about middle school sports as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much. If there is nothing else from anyone, I would like to adjourn this meeting and again say Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. Enjoy your holiday and be extremely safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.